So guys, today I have a less conventional, I guess you could say, video. Basically, I know we're centered on developments in East Asia and some and basically the major stuff happening around the world. But I wanted to look at some other developments in other parts of Asia, and this is a comparison between Jakarta and Kuala Lumpur, so Indonesia and Malaysia basically. So it's a channel called Future Century. Pretty interesting content. Does comparisons between Asian countries and has some interesting data as well, which you could check out for yourself. Economic data is what I mean. I don't totally agree with it, but we'll see. So let's begin. So Jakarta and Kuala Lumpur. I'm guessing it's comparing the development of each of these cities. Let's begin. Pretty sure they show the economic data of each city as well. 8 million people. So I want to highlight that Malaysia has, what was it, 30 million people. So just a second. Sorry about that. I got a calculator here. Let me see. I don't know the exact number of cities, but most of Malaysia's population is concentrated in Kuala Lumpur. It's pretty typical for neoliberal economies. So we can see it in South Korea, Japan, the U.S., Australia to a lesser extent, I guess. But we do see capital or economic activity, or whatever you want to call it, concentrated in one major city. So for the US, it's New York, NYC, where it's much larger than any other American city, bit more than 20 million people, I think, and well above $1 trillion in GDP. And in Tokyo, which is also 30 million people, or a bit above that actually. Sorry about that. And a GDP of almost 2 trillion at this point, GDP by purchasing power parity. And using the example of Australia, we got Melbourne, Sydney. Melbourne slightly larger than Sydney. Both these two cities are considerably. So I think Melbourne has 5 million people, so it's the size of Singapore. And both these cities considerably larger than all the other major cities in Australia. So Brisbane, Perth, Darwin, I guess you could count it. I don't really consider it comparable to other cities. What else am I missing? Yeah, and those cities in turn are much bigger than other urban settlements in Australia. So in neoliberal economies, the economic growth is not evenly distributed. It's concentrated in certain centers of economic activity, or you can call it capital, concentration of capital in certain areas. And of course, cities are more productive, but I'll explain in later in another video we're going to watch. And it compares, I think, Southeast Asia, China, and China is much more evenly developed than Southeast Asia. So let's continue with this. So I don't know where he gets these statistics from, but I guess for Kuala Lumpur it could be correct. I haven't done my research. It is a developed city, of course. 400 billion GDP, PPP, and 6% growth per annum. So, given that Malaysia's initially started off as a exporter in, I think it was palm oil or something. I don't recall exactly, but it was definitely some kind of resource extraction and export economy. But it's been going into high tech electronics and car manufacturing and all that. Not really famous in either of these areas, but it's been happening, diversifying its economy. So if you watch like some stats channel like Wawa Mu, I think that's how it's pronounced, Wawa Mu Stats or whatever, and you can see, like, if you go to a video that shows like the countries by high tech exports, and you'll see like Malaysia in pretty much all of these rankings above other resource extraction economies like Australia, the Gulf countries, Brunei. Well, Brunei is not a good example because it's tiny. What else? I guess a few African nations as well, I guess. So you can see Malaysia clearly punches way above its league for a resource extraction economy, and it has diversified its economy successfully. While the UAE is progressing towards that, Australia is ahead of the UAE, but I think it's behind Malaysia in that regard. And pretty much all our industries have been decimated by competition from Asia and Germany as well. And well, we've had conservative governments for a while now, so you know how that goes. But regardless, 6% for a well-developed city is still pretty impressive. HDI of 0.875 and 75,000 per capita, and the infrastructure is pretty highly developed. And what I find interesting is that so of course Malaysia is way more developed than Indonesia, but what I find interesting is that both these economies, this is simplified, and say both these economies are just neoliberal economies, but Malaysia has had, should I say, I've seen other Malaysian cities as well, and they are indeed much smaller, but they have really pretty good infrastructure development. The quality of infrastructure is pretty good. I guess they've been concentrating on developing those other cities as well. And we'll see that is in stark contrast to Indonesia, where the development's concentrated in Jakarta. But you don't see that same level of advancement in other Indonesian cities or urban centers, whatever you want to call them, you know. Just a second. Ooh. with the tallest buildings as well. This won't be the tallest building in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia for long though. Another interesting observation. So pretty much all of these videos I'm just going to be using observation alone and observational analysis, everything I've observed. If you compare, so these Southeast Asian economies, right, the tallest building is in the largest city. Of course, that makes sense, you'd think, but and the tallest building by a large margin, so it's not even that close, especially in the case of Malaysia. Like you don't have, outside of Kuala Lumpur, you don't have any skyscraper comparable in size to the Petronas towers. And I forgot what the Indonesian tallest building was, but same case in Indonesia as well. They're outside of Jakarta, far shorter. So in comparison to say China or something, so you got the Shanghai Tower, but outside of Shanghai you got the Ping An Center in Shenzhen, and that's like almost 600 meters, just 1 meter shy. So, and a few in other cities, a few like 500 meters plus, close to 600 meters. So that's just another observational thing you can observe. Yeah, see, and in all of Malaysia, only in Kuala Lumpur, we got a monstrous-sized building like this. It's already almost finished as well, but it's not as impressive, in my opinion, as the renderings show. I've seen some videos of it, but maybe once it's finished, I don't know. Maybe it's because it's not complete yet. There's like no one in there. But it's kind of like flat on the side, on this side here. You can even see my mouse, so you can't. Yeah, I gotta fix that for the next video. But yeah, 644 meters. Let's check what the height of the Petronas towers was. 452 meters. So quite the huge difference there. And that's in Kuala Lumpur as well. So you get like more concentration of capital in this one city, which I guess the government, I don't know how exactly their funding in their country works, but I guess the government concentrates that funding onto the capital. But what they could do is, from taxation, they could distribute the revenue from taxation of all the subnational entities within the country, and then they could distribute that revenue evenly across all the subnational entities and everything in the country. So how that works is like, so let's just say the revenue from taxation, right, is the same as Malaysia's GDP PP, but that's not how it works. But let's just say it is. So 1 trillion in revenue from taxation, right, in a year. So that would be distributed evenly across all of the subnational, whatever cities, how many cities it has, all that in Malaysia. And so Kuala Lumpur would have the same resources given to it for assistance in development as the smallest, say, town or something in Malaysia. So for Kuala Lumpur, this funding wouldn't be much, but for the smallest town, it's a huge boost. So the smallest town can catch up to the much larger cities in Malaysia, and urban development in Malaysia would be much more even eventually over time. So that kind of system would have to be stay in place for a long time, and that's just something a simple thing off the top of my head. Obviously, in real life, it's much more complex than that. It's just a hypothetical scenario of what Malaysia could do. So let's continue. Oh yeah, and obviously for Kuala Lumpur, that kind of level of funds is small boost to what they already get from running the city itself. So the growth of Kuala Lumpur in percentage terms would be smaller than the smallest city in Malaysia in that hypothetical scenario. So eventually, over time, these very small cities will catch up to Kuala Lumpur. Same thing with Indonesia. Number of skyscrapers 100. I wonder what height they count as skyscraper. 'I think Kuala Lumpur is the second most impressive city in Southeast Asia. Second to Singapore, of course. Singapore's on a different level. But I think Vietnamese cities will eventually surpass them soon, actually. 20 years maybe. I already see a lot of potential in Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh and all that. They're planned so well compared to most Southeast Asian cities, especially in Indonesia and Philippines and stuff. $33 million people, yeah. It's one of those unofficially largest cities in the world by population, of course. So 1 trillion GDP of 1 trillion, that's comparable to Malaysia's whole GDP, PP, and PPP per capita of 32,000. So wait up. Let me see. Malaysia's GDP, PPP. Let me check again. Okay, so that's, I think because of COVID or this data set. I'm pretty sure this data set is wrong because there's 1 trillion last time I checked, but it's definitely developed. It should be counted as a developed country at this point, considering the cutoff point is 25,000 pp per capita for a developed country, and I think 12,000 for in nominal per capita, and it has to have a higher HDA than 0.800. So Malaysia's just above that at 800 and just a second, yeah. So you guys can see 810 there. It's just above that. compare it. I think this takes us to the Human Development Index page. I know this has nothing to do with the video, but still check it out. So you got Singapore here, right? They drop over the they were much higher before, like 5th or something. Oddly enough, they don't have a 5th rank in here. So you got Japan, former investment credit creation economy, fell from grace. South Korea as well, former investment credit creation economy. Let's see, what are the former credit creation economy? I think, oh yeah, Malaysia's here, 810. It's funny because the majority of countries above it, but up until like say, yeah, up until Italy, I guess. They're not as impressive as Malaysia, but they have a higher HDI. Impressive as in like their infrastructure is not as good, or what else? They don't perform as well on various indices like trademarks, patents, what else? High-tech exports, like the example I used before. Oh, this is weird, so I guess they don't include Taiwan in here. And it shows countries, so it makes sense. But Taiwan was also a former investment credit creation economy, fell from grace. Either I'm blind or Taiwan's not actually in this here. Taiwan should be well above 0.800 on the Human Development Index. So that would mean the next, yeah. So China still uses investment credit creation. So, and I think that's it. Singapore is also investment credit creation economy. Former. They have the GDP PVP at 26 trillion, but it's 30 trillion. It should be 30 trillion. So they're coming up pretty good. So let's go back to this, get out of that. You can already tell the infrastructure is not as qualitatively good as Kuala Lumpur, just from observation alone. I wonder where he gets these statistics from, though. If they like estimated or they actually have a source for it, I'm not sure. Gama Tower, 289 meters. Not very impressive. And tallest building under construction, 333 meters. Not impressive. We can tell the road quality, except this section, but most of the roads in Jakarta are not comparable to Kuala Lumpur at all. And obviously what I call black spots in the city where there's not enough lighting. You can see that a lot in Jakarta, but compared to other Indonesian cities, it's much better. But still not comparable to Kuala Lumpur, and definitely not to Singapore. Good old tangled power lines and everything. Oh, I like this area. So I guess in the next comparison video, yeah, Future Century, check it out. Check out their channel. Interesting content in general. I would say I don't think these two cities are comparable. To be honest, I would say there are. I don't know. There's huge disparity in the development of various Southeast Asian cities. I would say Vietnam punches the most out of its league when it comes to who punches above the weight. Vietnam's definitely the highest, and to a lesser extent, much lesser extent, Malaysia. Indonesia is performing about what you would expect for a country of that level of development, as is the case with Philippines, the other major economy, Thailand as well. Other than Bangkok, Thailand doesn't really have very many impressive cities. Obviously, the Myanmar, Laos, however you pronounce it. Brunei as well. Brunei's like, I mean, you could consider it a city state, even though it's not really. It's way smaller than Singapore. And it's also a resource extraction economy like Malaysia. Of course, Malaysia being much larger, you be much easier to spot underdevelopment in that country than Brunei. But I'd say Brunei performs at its level of income, PDP per capita. So yeah, the rest are way too underdeveloped, I guess. But yeah, next I'll be checking out. So I think it's Southeast Asian economies versus China. It's gonna be a good one. So I'll see you guys there.